Hi, it's Olivia Edwards again, and I'm here to talk about a couple of podcasts that I watched for today. The first podcast I watched was from Google Teacher Tribes, and it was episode 36, and it was about using Google Drawings. In short, it talked about all of the various functions that it has. So there was visual note-taking, creating graphic organizers, and even doing interactive drawings with your students. The one that stood out to me most was visual note-taking, because that's something that I personally do, and I find it very helpful, and it keeps me engaged. And the graphic organizers are important as well, especially when you're doing adaptations for EL students or special needs students. Also, one of the cool features is that you can doodle yourself, and I think that classrooms these days are lacking creativity and personal connection, and I think that having interactive things like that gives your students an opportunity to jumpstart their own creativity and connect with themselves, with other students, and with you. The next podcast I watched was also on creativity, but it was from House of EdTech. It was episode 115. Basically, it listed off 10 different ways that you can jumpstart your own creativity as a teacher, and you can even do these with your students. And I'm going to read those off because I unfortunately didn't memorize the list of 10. The 10 ways are: stop trying to be perfect, let go; daydream, go for a walk; people watch, walk the web, which is basically surfing the internet; watch an uplifting documentary; talk to a child / play a game; listen to music; read short stories; and keep a journal. And these are also things that you can encourage your students to do when you're trying to jumpstart their creativity. The third podcast I watched was from Every Classroom Matters, and it was about 3 ways that your classroom layout can impact your students. So there are 3 major categories that affect your students, and there are natural factors, and then stimulation factors, and then there's individualization. In terms of natural factors, that's referring to things like light and temperature. They say natural light is the best, but if you have artificial light, just make sure that it's not flickery and distracting. And when it comes to decoration, they actually say that you don't want to overstimulate children. You do not want too much color, you don't want too much going on, because it will just distract them. And then finally, there's individualization, which has to do with the kids feeling like the classroom is their own. Do you have their stuff up on the walls? Do they get to make decorations for the classroom? You want it to feel like their home away from home. The 4th podcast I tackled was from Teachers Lounge, and it was episode 16. It was about a married couple who teach at different schools, and I enjoyed it a lot because it was more of a personal story, and they talked about their relationship and actually how becoming parents affected how they teach now. Because they feel like after they had children, they understood more where parents were coming from with them. They also addressed how it changed how they interact with special ed students, because their names are Brian and Meryl is a special ed teacher. And Brian said that after hearing stories from Meryl's experiences in her classes, he feels more prepared for differentiation, and he feels like it is more valid in his classroom. He values it much more. They also said that both of those factors, being teachers of different subjects and having kids, contribute them to not trying to categorize students so much and not trying to force everybody to learn the same way or a group of kids to learn the same way. They understand that all their students have individualized needs that they need to meet. And the last one I watched was Ditch That Textbook, episode 6, and it was actually about why podcasting is important. The main reason that there were 2 main reasons, but the first one that he emphasized is that a podcast allows you and your students to multitask. For example, when I was listening to all these, I was multitasking. I was able to do laundry while listening to Brian and Meryl tell me about their marriage and their classroom experiences. And your students will be able to listen to you and get other things done in their life. Also of note is the growing presence of social media. Students will be more likely to embrace what you have to say when you meet them on their platform. And that's all I have for you today. I enjoyed this. I love podcasts. I've podcasted before. And I'm stoked to see you next time.